Thank you, that was great. Hi everybody, my name is Mark Martin and I am really excited to be here during the spring fling that we have going on. Particularly, I'm excited to show you our TrueCut product line. It's been around for around 11 years and it's really a great product for some of the issues that we run into as we cut. And I'm going to ask everybody who's watching, when we cut our fabric and getting ready to piece our wonderful quilt, what are some of the roadblocks, not really roadblocks, but issues that we run into as we cut? Coming to my top of my head is veering away from the ruler's edge, going up and over the top of the ruler, maybe veering away from the ruler's edge as well. So all these things that come into play, and show of hands, as I talked about how many of you had that happen to you? I want to say probably almost everybody has, right? But here what I'm going to show is our Master Cutting Collection. And it's a wonderful collection of TrueCut products that will help you as you cut, make it easier, safer, and more accurate. And that's the bottom line. We want to make sure as you use the tools, the right tools, that you're cutting with ease and you're being more accurate. So I'm going to go over some of these products. We have several in this Master Cutting Collection, and it's going to be on sale during the spring fling, so make sure you get the special cost. But in this cutting collection, we have our comfort cutter. Now our comfort cutter is the best ergonomic cutter on the market, and I'm not just saying that to be funny. I know there's others out there that say they're ergonomic, but I truly want you to look and see what I'm going to do with this one, and I'm going to have you really in your mind go through like, wow, that does look like ergonomic, with the wrist being straight, your fingers, etc. So in this Master Cutting Collection, we have our comfort cutter. Now, the shape of it, as you can see, is one that we designed to make sure that the cutting force is above the blade, transferring down to the blade as we cut. As we do straight cutters or other ergonomic cutters out there, we tend to either move our wrist forward or we do something like this to get white knuckles. These are probably two common ones. Or we kind of lift up so our shoulder is above as we cut to get that pressure down. I'm going to go over some of these wonderful techniques that will eliminate the white fingers, the bending the wrist, getting above the cutter, and you're going to see all that can be resolved with our comfort cutter. Now there's not a wrong way to hold this, but we do have a recommend way. I'm going to grab this fabric here. And as we go to cut, I'll talk about our rulers here in a minute, but I'm going to focus on our comfort cutter. Now, as we go, like I'd mentioned, to apply the pressure, we tend to do this. And it's funny because even when I'm at an event and I allow someone to use this, first thing when I pick it up is they do something like this, because that's what they're used to, is getting the white knuckle, because that's the pressure. Now, as we go to cut, right here on the side, I'm going to see if I can get a close up here so I can show the mechanism on the blade. So as we go to, maybe you'll see it, but on the back side, right here where my finger is, there's a lever that we pull down and it shows the blade, and that's the safety of it. So TrueCut is very safe. We want to make sure you keep all 10 digits as we cut. All right, so now as we go to cut, the way that I love to hold and what most people like to do is holding it where your finger's up top. And I'm going to go ahead and get this showing it here, and I'm going to get into probably another up close here real quick as I'm holding it. So as you can see, my finger goes over the top, and we have enough plastic here to really make sure that your fingers are safe. So I'm over the top, and what that allows is the palm of my hand be right above the blade as I'm going to cut. So I'm not using my fingers. My fingers, as I hold it this way, is supporting the cutter, so it doesn't fall out of your hand. So underneath, I'm not squeezing it as well, and on the side, my thumb is just resting to the side of the cutter. So from the very beginning, as I hold it this way, my fingers are supporting the cutter, keeps my wrist straight. I'm not bending my wrist or getting white knuckles or squeezing the cutter. And that to me is why I believe it is the best ergonomic cutter out there. So let's go ahead and do just a couple of strips of cutting here. So as I go to cut, now I am higher than the table. So if you were sitting down, you'll notice that my wrist is nice and straight. And as I'm rolling it right along, it's almost like a pizza cutter, as an example. I'm rolling it, and I'm not bending my wrist to cut, and I'm not getting the white knuckle. So I'm using my comfort cutter to roll and to make these cuts nice. And that, again, that's me bending down, and you can see that I'm keeping my wrist straight as I'm making those cuts. Now, as I stand up, I'm still performing that same way. And to kind of really show how really effortlessly it is to cut, multiple layers is pretty simple. Using the comfort cutter as we're not really diving in. So some of the questions, again, I go back to you is, what are some of the issues that you're running into that's really stopping you from doing what you love, from cutting standpoint, whether it's the rulers, the rotary cutter that you already have, maybe mats, just basically the right tools needed. So with the comfort cutter, again, I'm making those cuts, keep it nice and straight. And this comfort cutter can be used on any ruler you already own. And we all know as cutters, you can never have enough rulers. So as I talk about our rulers, you're going to add to your collection. And the comfort cutter can be used with the rulers you already have. And you may own one that you're really familiar with. What's nice is this, again, can be used. Now, this also brings another dimension to cutting, which is being accurate. We talk about the ergonomics, keeping nice and straight, and you don't have to get above the cutter. Now let's talk about being accurate in your cutting. One of the things, obviously, that we use is a ruler and a rotary cutter. And by using both, we tend, as we go to the longer cuts, we tend to veer away from the ruler's edge. Or we go up and over the ruler. Because we want to keep that blade nice and tight against the ruler, we tend to maybe go on top. And our ruler can also shift. So we come across these as we cut. And again, as we have elements in our hand like arthritis, carpal tunnel, ligaments taken out, these can prevent you from doing what you love. And I promise you, as I go over these items, if you already own it and you love it, fantastic. If you're thinking about moving away or trying to upgrade your cutter because of these elements I've talked about, go with our ergonomic comfort cutter. It's the best. Now, accompanied with our ruler, talked about these elements, we designed a track in our rulers, what we call it. It's a taller edge, and I'm going to get up close on this. Now, with the taller edge, right here on the side, this little lip here, the cutter itself is going to interlock with that. So I'm going to bring my cutter over, and I'm going to show you on my cutter, I have this black plastic guide is what we call this, and this interlocks with the ruler. And what that does is keep the blade right against a ruler's edge no matter what. So I don't need to press up against it to make sure I'm straight. Right now, as I interlock the guide, it is staying nice and tight against my ruler's edge. So when I go to make my cuts, it's going to be very simple, very nice, and again, accurate. And again, TrueCut is, we're all about easier, safer, and being more accurate as we cut. So let's demonstrate some of the cutting. I'm going to grab another fabric here. Now, as we cut, we line it up. As we want to make a 4-inch cut, we want to make sure we line it either on the mat or with the ruler. Now, as I go and make my cut, again, my blade is against the ruler's edge. And I'm going to show you, as I do this, you notice that the ruler isn't sliding to the left. Like you would if I were to put the blade up against it, it's going to slide, which then we have to put our hand on there to keep it from moving. And some people even put their whole arm. I've even had people talk about their knee as they're cutting on the ground. So this process, you can see that the ruler is staying nice and put. Now I'm going to go ahead and make that cut again, and let's line that back up. And as I cut, just so everybody knows, I'm not truly trying to line things up. what I want to show you is how easy it is to get straight cuts. Where you line your own fabric up, that's what you want. At this demonstration, I'm just going to put the fabric down and I'm just going to do some cuts here so you can see how simple it is. So I'm going to go ahead and line that up. Now as I press down, my hand, I'm going to keep just off to the side so I don't, that's what we're used to, is off to the side and not close to the edge of the ruler. So as I'm going to go up and make my cut, I'm going to get a straight cut every time. And you notice my ruler didn't slide. And I'm going to even do a little extreme as I'm talking about the two, is I'm going to put the fabric closer to the top. And we all know if I cut to the top and I keep my hand down at the bottom, my ruler is going to want to shift to the one side. And we've all had that happen, which is why we either walk up our ruler or we put our whole arm on there to make sure it stays straight. But not with the Master Cutting Collection, particularly not with our comfort cutter, with our guide, and all of our rulers. So as I go ahead and I can interlock that again, I'm going to simply hold down here. I'm going to go all the way up and make that cut without that ruler sliding. Because of the guide resting on the ruler, it presses down itself. So you have your hands holding it plus the guide on top of it. So you're really no slip. You don't have to worry about veering away because fabric can be expensive. So we are now being very accurate in our cutting. And it's very, very fun, and it's very easy as we put two together. Again, you can use this with your own ruler, or all of our rulers come with this track on the sides here. This also does another thing, is safety. Maybe you already have a cutter that you want to use. That press right up against this edge here to make sure that you're not jumping over the track. But as we focus on this entire Master Cutting Collection, you're going to get several items at a great price that includes most of our rulers, our mat, which we'll go over, and again, the comfort cutter. So cutting, I could do this all day as you're cutting. Because I'm not hurting my hand or my wrist, I can cut over and over, and I'm getting those nice straight cuts every time, which is fantastic. So for you out there who are doing a lot of cutting and you are realizing that maybe your hand isn't functioning as well, what a great combo package here to give you all the right tools to go forward. All right, this combo together is perfect. Now, as I mentioned, we have several rulers in this Master Cutting Collection, and we also have True Grips. True Grips, for those who maybe have owned True Grips and that's all they've owned the TrueCut line, it's pretty funny because as we go, customers always say, oh, I have those, and not realizing we have an entire setup. Everybody owns the True Grips. And what these are rubber rings. So these circles go on the back of any ruler. They are 30 in a pack, so you get 15 large and 15 small. And what you do is, I'm going to just take one off here. So this goes on the back of any ruler again, and these are clear adhesive rings. They will not take the view away from what you're trying to measure, and it will not raise your ruler up. So these rings go on the back of the ruler. So we already have several on the back of this 3x18 ruler, and that keeps the ruler from wanting to slide. So even though we are pressing down with the cutter, you also have the ruler from not sliding. I'm going to show you. So this one doesn't have it, and you can see it can slide. This one has it, and it keeps it nice and strong, right in place again, so you're being more accurate. All right, I'm going to take this to the side here. Now, with the cutter, you could also make it to where you can take this large guide off and use it without. Sometimes if you're using or you're doing very small cutting, this can get in the way if you're trying to cut without a ruler. So this comes also with another small piece, and this could go on it, and then this is where you can cut those smaller pieces, so that's great. Now outside of that, our rulers. Our rulers are very strong, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to ask how many of you guys can do this with the ruler you own without snapping it. Okay, we inject all of our rulers, makes them very sturdy, very strong, even with all these holes. Now let's talk about these holes. These holes are great for marking and for lining up your fabric. So as you're looking down, obviously if you want to line up, or if you know you're going to cut maybe 2 inches after you cut your first 2 inches, you can go ahead and pre-mark those and make those cuts. Very simple. Or like I said, you could hold it through. You could put your fingers through the holes and hold your ruler down that way. And that's on our 6.5 by 24.5 ruler. In the Master Cutting Collection, let's go over what's in it, because I'm sure you guys are all dying to know what's in this Master Cutting Collection. Well, we have our comfort cutter. We have several of these True Grip packages. Now, with our rulers, we have a 3x18 ruler that comes in this. We have a 6.5 by 24.5, a 6.5 by 12.5. We have all of our square rulers, which go from 12.5 square, 9.5 square, and 6.5 square. And we also have our fun triangle set rulers, from our kite ruler to our 60-degree angle and our 90-degree angle. So for those smaller pieces you're looking to do, these rulers are fantastic for them. And they all have the track on each of our rulers. Particularly on the square ones, there is a out process. So if you're cutting straight through, it does allow you to go straight through those rulers. So that is nice. So as I'm talking about these products, I want you to ask yourself a couple questions as you've been doing your own cutting. You know, does my cutter, does my cutter, does it fit in my hand right? Am I feeling these pains that Mark talked about? Do I want to be more accurate? I know we want to all be more accurate, and I know that as a quilter, you can never own too many rulers. So what a great package this is to have all these rulers again with what you already own. We also have our cutting mat. So our cutting mat, I'm going to move this off to the side. I'm going to talk about this here in a minute, is a circle cutter, which we have a perfect tool for the circle cuts. But with our cutting mat, mats, sure, people say, right, they self-heal over time, and that's true to an extent, but the more you're using your mat over and over and over again in the same spot, you can either delaminate your mat or you make grooves in there, and those grooves, as we cut our fabric, you may get some skipped cuts in there, and we may think it's a blade going dull, but you may have just some lines in your mats. Our cutting mat, now that comes in this quilter's Master Cutting Collection, is a 24.5 by 36.5. So it's a large cutting mat, and it is double-sided. So you're basically getting 2 mats for the price of 1. Easy to read. The lines up here at the very top are the markings. So if you do bring your fabric to the top, you're still able to see exactly where you want to cut, because the numbers are outside of your fabric. This is a 5-ply mat, which means 3 in the middle helps really that cutting process. So as you're cutting, the deeper you go, it does last a lot longer because we have 3-ply. And again, we have a back side and a front side. You also get these, you also get the non-slip pad to keep your mat from sliding. Just like the ruler slides, we all know when we cut, the mat can slide as well. So from start to finish with our Master Cutting Collection, you're going to have a much easier, safer way of cutting. You're going to be more accurate, and this all comes in a great price here for this event. We also have, I mentioned, like the circle cutter. Now, this is another one of those questions. How many of you like to do circle cuts for your fabric? Maybe some hands go up. It's probably because I don't have the right tool. Circle cutters, for the most part, can either bunch the fabric underneath, or it can move on you, or when you go do your cut, you may have a little tail at the end just because it slid on you. Our circle cutter has this wide base. So this circle cutter, you see the wide base. It cuts 2 to 12 inches in diameter, and this wide base keeps your fabric from wanting to bunch or move. So as we go to cut, I already have one right here, but let's go do another one. I love using the products. I'm going to grab another one of these fabrics. Now, this fabric isn't the straightest, right? It's wrinkle. Most of you guys may iron it, but with the circle cutter, as I go on and off the fabric, it keeps it nice and flat. It's not moving or bunching underneath, which allows you to maybe cut if you want to do certain shapes. You can go on and off the fabric. So let's go ahead and cut. I'm going to do a 8-inch circle. Now, under the blue knob here is where the blade is located, and this is the pin to keep it nice in spot so it doesn't move on you. And how we recommend cutting is I'm going to cross my hands here. That way I could get one nice clean circle. So nice 8-inch circle, and then from there you can put it in there and cut smaller. This is easy to adjust. I just twist this knob. Now I can move whatever size I am looking to do for the project that you're doing. So very simple. And again, because we're very safe and accurate in what we do, we don't want to have an accidental mistake or cutting of our hands. So right here on the side, there's a safety mechanism. You just slide that over and it prevents the knob from being pressed down. So that is a nice feature on our circle cutter. So circle cuts to straight cuts to our triangle set, you're going to have everything you need and more. You know, if you want to build with the tools you already have, this gives you a wonderful layout of exactly the right tools needed. And I love showing these when I go to events and people see it. I love when their eyes light up. And hopefully as you guys are watching this during this awesome spring fling, that your eyes were lighting up as you were seeing some of these. And especially if you know that you fall into the category of your wrist, you have the shakes, your fingers, your elbow, basically your entire arm as you cut, that you know using our comfort cutter, it will honestly solve all those issues as the pressure comes from up above and not with our fingers or moving the wrist. So combine that with the rest of our cutting tools, and you're going to be set. There was one thing I forgot. Blades, right? Blades, we all know, can be expensive. This cutting collection comes with a 5-pack of blades as well. So you get a 5-pack of blades with everything else. And I know, not so much maybe from experience, but from cutting enough as I do these demos, how important it is to have the ruler not slide. My wife's a quilter, and she talks about all the time when she's cutting on the longer cuts, sometimes she, especially with the 6.5 by 24.5, right? The longer we go, we stretch and we tend to either go away from the ruler's edge. So this will eliminate that process. Thank you for watching and participating in our spring fling. We have a lot more coming up, especially the next one. We're going to be talking about maintaining your frames, etc., as you do more of your quilting. So thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you later.